good people, thank you once again for this rare opportunity. I'm coming to you today with some information which I believe is going to change your perspective on virtual reality and related technologies. So today we are going to look at one of the issue is what we call virtual reality induced motion sickness and its mitigation. We are also going to look at physical safety considerations. And finally, we are going to end this lesson today by looking at how to ensure safety in virtual reality environment. That is what is going to cap or is going to be the final point or the final thing that we are going to discuss today. So we are going to look at safety and health in virtual reality. That is our main concern, because at the end of the day, as we use these systems, as we use virtual reality in our places of work or wherever we are using this virtual reality, we understand that we are gaining from them, but at the same time, we also need to consider our safety. We also need to consider our health, because if we are sick or we are not safe, therefore, whatever we are deriving from whichever technology we are making use of or utilizing, then it doesn't make sense, because we are bound to lose at any time. We are at risk of either getting injured or falling sick. So we need to look at all perspective. We need to look at all the variables, even with virtual reality being the constant element in this. We need to look at other things that are related to virtual reality in order to be able to draw much from it, to be able to understand how it works and make sense of everything that is brought to us. So we are starting by looking at physical safety consideration. So if we are able to consider or look into the whole idea, the whole dimension of physical safety and considerations that must be put in place to make sure that one is safe when immersing themselves into virtual reality environment, then it will be important leap into making maximum use of virtual reality systems that there are. So physical safety consideration in virtual reality is a key element in ensuring that users can enjoy immersive experiences without having to risk themselves or others. So that is the key thing. So virtual reality or virtual reality environment can be highly engaging. It is usually highly engaging and often causing users to lose touch with the physical world, and therefore it is important to look at the the physical safety measures that we as a consumer or those people who are using these virtual reality systems are able to put in place, so that we can be able to derive much from virtual reality system as it is. Now, one of the things that we need to consider when working with virtual reality is the clear play area. Now, this is one of the physical safety measures or consideration that must be there. Now, we need to ensure that virtual reality play area is free from obstacles, things like furniture or any objects that users can bump into or can hit when they are using virtual reality devices. So the area in which we have a virtual reality system installed should be devoid of physical components or physical things that can cause harm to the user of virtual reality system. we also need to look at there is what we call room scale virtual reality setup. So if you're using room scale virtual reality, establish physical boundary using the guardian or the Caperon systems that are well able to prevent users from straying into dangerous zone. So this is a pertinent issue. It's a pertinent thing that we really need to look into. We also need to have a secure headset that we secure it on our head or whichever place we are able to fix it. So we need to make sure that the virtual headset is securely fastened to the user's head to prevent it from causing injury to the user. Another physical consideration that we must look into is basically the cable organization. So the cables that is maybe connecting the headset to the computer and other related devices should be well organized so that we do not end up with the cables entanglement that can able to result into causing injury or causing accident to the users of virtual reality. So we need to consider other options like using wireless virtual reality so that we do not have a lot of cables surrounding our environment, because when we do have a lot of cables within our environment, then we risk getting entangled with the cables and probably one can fall down or can be able to cause some injury to themselves owing to the entanglement of with the cables that are part of the virtual reality system. Another aspect is supervision. You see, new users or children who are using virtual reality, there must be someone around them who can be able to guide and supervise when they are using this virtual reality system, because new users probably they are using a virtual reality system, and within this virtual reality system there are other devices which these users can go beyond the demarcated area for virtual reality and end up hitting something or even destroying the setup for the virtual reality. So it is very important to be there so that the people, the inexperienced users or even children are not venturing into unsafe areas when they are using this virtual reality system. We also need to limit playtime. Playtime should be limited. It should be clearly set out, because prolonged use of virtual reality can cause discomfort and fatigue. So users can take regular break, prevent this physical strain that may emanate from prolonged usage of these devices. We also need to look at ergonomics. So this we need to pay attention to the virtual reality setup. We should have seats which are compatible with the system or even with the body structure that is able to bring about comfortability when you are using these devices, so that you don't experience discomfort that might result in health issues later on after using virtual reality for a period of time. So we also need to look at ways in which we can be able to prevent what we call motion sickness. So we need to be aware of potential motion sickness in virtual reality, and we also need to provide option to reduce discomfort or to reduce states that can lead one to what we call motion sickness. So users should stop using virtual reality when they feel unwell. So we should stop doing that. We should stop using virtual reality when we are feeling unwell. Another thing which is very important is also to do what we call user education. the creators or even the providers of virtual reality should be in a position to educate users when they acquire this system, so that they do not end up making choices or getting injured because of lack of education or lack of information. So it is imperative that these devices uh, be used after some sort of training or education on how to make use or how to use this systems have been done. So the other thing is we need to have what we call uh, restricted access. So limited access to virtual reality equipment to individuals who understand the safety guidelines and physical capability of using the technology. So we need to have limited access so that we don't allow anybody or any dick and Harry using these devices. We should only have access to those people who have undergone training, who have undergone some sort of education, who have been trained on how to use virtual reality to lay hands on this system. Because if somebody is trying to use virtual reality and they've not gotten some kind of training on how to use the systems, chances are they might end up injuring themselves, or even they can end up destroying the device. So it is important to go through some sort of training, and also if, even with that, we also need to make sure that not everyone is making use of these devices. Not everyone is able to access these devices, because if we allow that, then at the end of the day, we might end up losing the system, because somebody who doesn't know how to use it may lay their hands on, and because they don't know how to operate it, they end up destroying the system as it is. We also need to have medical consideration, right? These are some of the physical safety considerations that we need to look at. So we need to look at medical consideration. So virtual reality might not be suitable for individuals with certain conditions. So there are people with some conditions like epilepsy, or people who are already suffering motion sickness or any other related sickness. They are not allowed to use these devices. So they should be prevented from using these devices, because they can get injured, or it can cause them some kind of harm. It can bring them double tragedy, or it can cause them problems if we allow such individuals to use this system. So we should also have some sort of emergency preparedness. So we should have a plan in place for addressing emergencies, such as ensuring users can quickly exit virtual reality device and receive assistance if need be. So it is important to do that. We also need to do hardware maintenance regularly, so that we have our system working well and efficient. Because when you are having a system that is well maintained, then it is going to serve you, and it is going to serve you well. So we need to do regular inspection and maintain virtual reality hardware to ensure good working condition, and so that it will not pose physical risk to us. All right. So it is important also to check on that. The Also, the creators of virtual reality, I believe they have a department, or they usually have a way of making sure that users have been assured of the quality of the device they have. So there is what we call quality assurance. So game and virtual reality experience developers should rigorously test their devices before they relay these devices or these systems to the users to make use of them. Yeah, so if so also in the room where we have, or in the surrounding where we have virtual reality system, there must be ways in which um, airflow is regulated. So there must be what we call ventilation, because virtual reality headsets can generate some heat, so users should be aware of the potential for overheating and discomfort. So we need to have a room that has got adequate ventilation, and breaks can also help mitigate heat and such kind of related things. So we should always have breaks in between. Now, having looked at physical safety considerations, we also need to look at how can we manage motion sickness. How can we mitigate this motion sickness that is coming from continued use of virtual reality? We are talking of virtual reality induced motion sickness. So this is motion sickness that is induced or that is brought about by use of virtual reality. So there are several techniques and strategies that can be employed in mitigating induced motion sickness in virtual reality. So one of them is what we call smooth motion. So we need to implement what we call smooth and continuous motion in virtual reality application, basically to reduce sudden movement that can trigger discomfort. So we should always have some kind of smooth transition or smooth motion in virtual reality application to reduce what we call sudden movements, and because sudden movements can trigger discomfort, and discomfort can bring about what we call motion sickness. There is also what we call teleportation. Now we need to use teleportation as a means of movement in virtual reality. Users can teleport to different location instead of traditionally walking around and running, so which basically can reduce motion related issues or sickness. There's also what we call field of view control. So we need to limit the field of view of in-game motion to reduce peripheral visual cues, so that we have narrow field of view to help alleviate what we call motion sickness. So we need to reduce motion. We need basically to reduce the field of view of users when they are using virtual reality, because when we have so many field of view, our eyes are going to capture a lot from within the environment, and that can bring forth with it what we call motion sickness. There is also what we call natural motion. We need to encourage natural physical motion in virtual reality. So we need to ensure that users' movement in virtual reality world correspond accurately with real world action. So that is very important also. That is another way of mitigating virtual reality induced sickness. There is also what we call comfort mode. So some virtual reality application offer what we call comfort modes that reduce the intensity of motion effects or limit the field of view to basically accommodate sensitive users. Yeah, people are different, and whenever people are using virtual reality, they'll tend to behave differently. So this will be able to help users to basically reduce their chances of getting what we call motion sickness. So we also need to do what we need to do adjustable settings. So allow users to customize virtual reality setting based on their comfort level. So tweak the settings to suit us, twist or adjust the settings so that it can be able to accommodate that person around you, the user who is using uh, this system. Another thing that can help us, kick away induce motion sickness is gradual exposure. So a new users should be consistently and slowly by slowly be introduced to virtual reality in a gradual manner, not exposing them at once to virtual reality, but it should be something that is systematic and well organized so that they do not suffer induce motion sickness. So it is important to note that need to look at how can we ensure user safety, how can we ensure users safety in virtual reality environment. So there are a number of ways we can be able to ensure safety in a virtual reality environment. So we have what we call physical safety, as I mentioned earlier. So one of them is to have clear play area. Now, in this area where we have our virtual reality system and application set up, it should be free from furnitures and obstacles or any object that can cause or that users can bump into and cause them harm. So we also need to use what we call room scale virtual reality boundaries. So set up physical boundaries or use guidance system to prevent users from straying into dangerous areas or zones. Right. We also need to secure headset fit. So the headset should be well kept on our head tightly so that they do not fall or trip and cause injury. We also need to manage our cables properly, as I mentioned earlier. We should always have our cables well organized, and there should be also what we call supervision. Those new users um, who are starting out their virtual reality journey should be supervised, and even children who are using these devices, they should be supervised so that they do not end up injuring themselves when they are using this system. We also need to look at ergonomics. So we should buy devices and chairs and such that are of good standard and of good quality, that are able to support the virtual reality systems in terms of users are using this system comfortably without having to inflict in themselves any form of injury, be it physical or psychological. So we need to look at that. So we need to get secure hardware and accessories. We also need to do what we call user education to educate users about the systems. We also need to look at motion sickness mitigation. We need to get down and understand what motion sickness is, and once we know what it is and how it takes place, or how how one gets it, or one is able to be in a situation where they feel sick. So we, first of all, before we come to that point, we need to understand. So only when we are able to understand what we are dealing with, then we have the upper hands to do or to put in measures that are going to help us get rid of that kind of thing. So we also need to look at what we call digital well-being. So we need to encourage users not to basically to strike balance between virtual reality and real world activities, because prolonged use or use of virtual reality can lead to psychological issues or even sickness, as we have been able to mention. So it is important to also make sure that we have some kind of emergency preparedness in case there is a problem with the person who is using virtual reality. There should be a way in which we can be able to help these users, or when we should have plan in case of injury or what. So what are we supposed to do? What are the procedures of getting out of that area? So we also need to look at what we call privacy and data protection. So we need to safeguard users' privacy by providing data protection regulation and also ensuring that personal data is handled securely and with decorum. So it is important we do that. So I think we also need to look at psychological safety. We should be mindful of emotional impact, brought about by virtual reality. So basically, content creators should provide warning and opt-out option for potential distressing content. So it is important we look at that. So thank you so much for coming through, and I'm always honored to have you. So with this information, I believe you are set. You have at least some information about virtual reality and the way it affects our life. You see, most of us are so much engrossed into using virtual reality without without considering the psychological or health dimensions of virtual reality. So mine is just to make you aware of the challenges that are around virtual reality, or are facing virtual reality, the challenges with the systems, the challenges with human beings, and how we interact with the system. So mine is just to enlighten you. So I hope and I believe that this information is going to play a critical role in your decisions, even as you prepare to make use of virtual reality in your endeavors. So thank you for joining me. Remember to subscribe, and also remember to hit that like button so that you can be informed when I upload a new video. So thank you for taking this journey with me. See you next time.